blocked by McGee. Tries to get a handle on it, is done. 7'1", he races the floor.
JaVale going right into him, over him. Maybe the knee caught James, was still.
There are few players in the NBA that come around once in a generation, and JaVale McGee is certainly one of those. While he tried to be MJ and even Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he's always been the NBA's most memeable guy. See, for those of you who don't know JaVale, in the past he's been one of the most entertaining players on the planet, just not for the reasons you might expect. It felt meant to be. See, as a late first-round draft pick back in 2008, JaVale McGee was drafted to a Washington Wizards team that featured multiple guys that could start on a hypothetical first-team all-Bonehead squad, featuring the likes of Gilbert Arenas, Nick Young, and Andre Blatche. With JaVale now in the mix, Washington had 4 knuckleheads on one squad, a team that had so much firepower that it won a whopping 19 games. And players don't get much more interesting than JaVale McGee. He is a true 7-footer with a 7'6" wingspan who can run the floor and jump out of the gym. In fact, he is capable of playing so far above the rim that the Wizards installed a special above-the-rim camera his rookie year to capture how much amplitude he gets. This man had bunnies back in the day. And by his 3rd year in the NBA, JaVale McGee was actually proven that he could become one of those rare, very super talented players. But you gotta take the bonehead moments with it. In 2011, JaVale finished number 1 in the NBA in block percentage, 2nd in total blocks, 7th in field goal percentage, and had the most impressive dunk of the 2011 dunk contest, as well as the most impressive in-game block of the season. Incredibly enough, it looked like he had the makings of becoming a very good NBA player. And that's when he reached his most impressive month of his career. And quite frankly, when I sat down and watched some of JaVale highlights before making this video, even I forgot he was this good. In March of 2011, JaVale recorded a rare blocks, rebounds, points triple-double against the Bulls, a 22-point, 13-rebound game against the Clippers, and a 28-point, 18-rebound game against the Warriors. For the month, McGee averaged 13 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game on 57% shooting. And now you're probably wondering, if JaVale was this productive in his early 20s, then what happened? Well, JaVale's a rare breed, and his brain often got in the way of his talents.
Desperately. Long rebound, Nick Young. John Wall.
See, he often does things on the court that nobody else can do, or would even attempt to do, and for good reason. See, JaVale's always had some underlying boneheaded tendencies, but Washington's terrible team and culture really helped that come to the surface. He can dunk from the free throw line.
Thought process problem.
It's just not something your average player is going to try to do during the game. Oh, and he can get up and block shots at the height of their arc, too. He's been criticized pretty cruelly on national TV and just might be the #1 reason that Shaqtin' a Fool became famous. He was basically the unofficial MVP of the show and was a regular low-light reel on that thing, grabbing the spotlight with some seriously head-scratching plays in almost every single game. I mean, let's be real, Shaq often did him dirty though. Some of this clowning was a bit much, and McGee ended up looking like the NBA star goofball. Flops, questionable decisions, he had it all. It even got to a point where McGee started taking things personally though, and that's where the issue started. While JaVale was an elite shot blocker, his defensive game was lacking. He frequently went for blocks that often put him out of position. He often looked lost on pick and roll coverage, and big men never had much problem scoring on him. And for that reason, the Wizards were one of the worst defensive teams in the league, with their opponents scoring at least 110 points 9 times in 1 month during the 2010 season. Since entering the NBA, McGee has had quite the career shuffling between a number of teams, and except for a few glimpses, a handful of good patches, and 3 NBA championships, it hasn't quite clicked for him, which is a little surprising to think about if you dive deeper into the distant past. See, starting in Flint, Michigan, McGee attended multiple high schools before landing at Hales Franciscan High School in Chicago. And his family background is deeply rooted in basketball, as his mother was a WNBA star, and his dad got drafted into the NBA way back in 1985. His college days at the University of Nevada showcased his raw talent, though, with a notable moment being his recruitment to Nevada, where he actually put up star-quality numbers in points, rebounds, and blocked shots. But despite not reaching his full potential at Nevada, McGee's talent was always simmering beneath the surface, you know? Sure, he didn't get that much playing time initially and was just a second-team All-WAC player as a sophomore before he went pro, but the guy's potential was always through the roof, and we would begin to see some of that big potential when the trade to the Denver Nuggets happened in 2012, marking a turning point for McGee. He immediately looked a lot better in Denver than he did in Washington, thanks in large part to George Karl, one of the most successful and harshest coaches of all time, and a master of maximizing the strengths of his players. McGee's Nuggets debut, which included a game-winning tip jam, was proof of the positive impact of the change. But despite this, playing time was limited for JaVale. For the Wizards, during his last season, he started 40 of 41 games. However, with the Nuggets, he would start in just 5 of 20 games. His minutes would also be reduced, averaging 27.4 minutes with Washington, but down to only 20.6 with the Nuggets. And although he did finally get an opportunity to showcase himself on the playoff stage, JaVale scored 21 points in Game 5 in the first round against the Los Angeles Lakers, his numbers were up and down throughout the series, including Game 7 when he scored just 6 points on 1 of 7 shooting in 32 minutes. But at least he proved that he had it in him to play valuable minutes when it mattered the most. And the Nuggets saw that too, re-signing him to a 4-year, $44 million contract in the summer. But here's the other big thing about JaVale's career that was often overlooked. Just as things were looking up, injuries plagued his career. A stress fracture in his left tibia cut short his 2013-2014 season, and the subsequent season saw him struggling to stay on the court with various ailments. He managed just 17 games the following season for Denver. And to make things worse, he was traded to the 76ers, the worst team in basketball, which was a huge turning point for the still young JaVale who had proven his value. Now, luckily enough, his stint with the 76ers was brief, appearing in only 6 games during the 2014-2015 season before being waived. But the trade to a team in the midst of a rebuild didn't provide the stability he needed to overcome the injury setbacks and fully regain his form. JaVale McGee's journey continued with the Dallas Mavericks in the 2015-2016 season, but the injuries hadn't left him alone yet, playing in just 34 games and averaging a career low in points with just 5 a game. Now at this point, it would have been easy to write JaVale off altogether, right? Instead, not only were the next few seasons injury-free for the most part, he arguably would go on to play the best basketball of his life. But doubts about his future in the league were surfacing. However, the Golden State Warriors took a blow when they lost the defensive anchor in Andrew Bogut. So, to make up for the loss, they signed JaVale to a very team-friendly deal, hoping he'd prove some sort of rim protection and at least temporarily fill the shoes of Bogut. Playing along stars like Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, JaVale thrived in a system that suited his strengths. Remember, this was the first time in his now 8 years in the NBA that JaVale was part of a franchise that wasn't underwater. And to JaVale's everlasting credit, he made the most of it. He played in 77 of 82 regular season games and shot over 65% from the field. And just as the Warriors were hoping he'd provide some value defensively, JaVale gave the Dubs an edge on the other end of the court that they weren't even expecting. He would swat everything around the rim, giving the already unfair 2017 Warriors an added dimension. And offensively, he was a stud, expertly running the floor and finishing lob dunks off Steph or Draymond's passes. Heck, in just 13 minutes in Game 2 of the first round that year, he had 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 blocks. And he shot a perfect 7 for 7 from the field and even made his lone free throw attempt. A performance so good that since minute totals became a track stat back in the 1983-84 season, just 20 players have had 15, 5, and 4 off the bench in a playoff game. JaVale did it in by far the fewest minutes, by the way, with 15 of the 19 other players needing more than twice as much playing time as he did to get there. Winning back-to-back championships with the Warriors in 2017 and 2018 showcased JaVale's transformation from a Shaqtin' a Fool regular to a valuable piece of a championship-winning puzzle, a moment that began to change his reputation around the NBA. In fact, he became valuable enough that the Warriors couldn't even afford to re-sign him in 2018. So, to get the money he so rightfully deserved, JaVale joined LeBron in LA. bringing us my favorite season of JaVale's entire career. JaVale McGee embraced a starting role entering the season for the first time in his career. McGee was one of the team's most important players at both ends of the floor. And for the first time ever, he made his mark as a legitimate starting center, putting up career highs in points, assists, and steals for the season. And he was doing it all alongside LeBron. And we know some players can't handle a spotlight like that. But JaVale was thriving. He even had an all-time performance of 33 points, 20 rebounds, and 6 blocks against the Brooklyn Nets in March. During that 2018-2019 NBA season, even though the Lakers were decimated with injuries and drama, JaVale quietly put together his third straight season of excellent productivity. At 31 years old, he peaked, finishing 5th in blocks, 3rd in field goal percentage, and 12th in overall defensive rating, and averaged a career high in points. Truly something else. And a year later, he topped it all off with another NBA championship, making that his 3rd of his career. And JaVale's last productive stint in the NBA came with the Suns averaging 9 points and a block per game. And the most recent chapter in JaVale's career led him to the Sacramento Kings in September 2023. And now at an advanced stage and age of his career, if we look back on his 16 seasons in the league, it's kind of stunning to think that this guy with an early reputation as bad as JaVale's stuck around all these years. In hindsight, a ton was overstated about him. I mean, given his situation early in his NBA career, you could argue he showcased special ability despite not being part of a winning culture. But through good and bad, JaVale stuck it out and put together a super solid NBA career. This video was not meant to dump on JaVale. I just couldn't wait any longer to finally put a video out and clear the air on a misunderstood player like this. But what surprised you the most about JaVale's career? You think maybe he's one of the most misrepresented players ever? Let us know down in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.